I went and saw Oppenheimer in the cinema, and I'm going to try my best not to spoil anything, although I think you have a pretty good idea what the film is about. But let me put it this way. If you were expecting this film to be something about the construction, the actual, construction of the nuclear bomb, you will be sorely, sorely disappointed. This is more of a biopic than anything else, and it deals with a bunch of, legal middle fingers that they tried to give Oppenheimer, and like his extramarital affairs. I mean, it was really boring. I'm sorry to say this, but the bigger problem here is not that it was boring, that they leave out a lot of key details. So let's start with the first one. They make it seem like this base that they built in the desert to start constructing the nuclear bomb and then testing it there. It was just a patch of land in the middle of nowhere that was uninhabited, right? Does that sound familiar to you? Right? The pioneers. Oh yeah, we have to conquer. Right? We're always discovering new frontiers. It's just uninhabited land. We can just for the taking. It's a lie. This is a lie. They kicked here. It's even in the LA Times, right? They kicked out entire communities and stole their land and killed their livestock in order to make the nuclear bomb. Okay, so let me read some of these parts to you that are in the article. So, for example, they say in the film, both the test site and the Los Alamos laboratory in northern New Mexico are remote, unpopulated areas. A depiction that's largely in line with most historical accounts of the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project is the code name for the building of the nuclear bomb. The reality is starkly different. The land acquired by the United States government to build and test the bomb was occupied, as was the 150-mile radius surrounding the quote-unquote Trinity test, areas that were settled predominantly by Hispanic and Native American ranchers and homesteaders. Okay? The residents who remained in the surrounding area were given no warning about the Trinity test, with Manhattan Project leader General Leslie R. Groves insisting that anything surrounding the operations remain a closely guarded secret. This goes without saying that this is a safety hazard, right? The French, when they're taking uranium out of Niger, I can guarantee you, and this is a well-documented fact, that the livestock, the Touareg livestock, and who are in the north of Niger, the Touareg are people who live in the desert, right? So who are closer to Algeria. Their livestock are dying. The 3 villages surrounding the extraction, the main extraction mine in Niger, that is run by Areva. People were not given proper safety equipment, while they're mining. So they've been exposed to radiation. Of course, this, because why spend money trying to properly shield people and protect them? The same thing goes for nuclear tests. The French, just like the Americans, conducted nuclear tests in areas knowing that this would poison the land and kill people. So going back to the article, they say that Henry Herrera, a downwinder who was 11 years old at the time of the blast, dirt, dust, and debris coated everything around him. Quote, he said that this filth landed all out over our town, covered our village with radiation. Everything we consumed was filled with radiation. The article continues, as radiation contaminated the air, water, and soil through the Tularosa Basin, cancer became a reality, as predictable as New Mexico's yearly monsoons. Quote, we don't ask if we're going to get cancer, we ask when we're going to get cancer. Cordova said, quote, in my own family, just look at the level of loss my mom experienced. She lost my dad, her sister, her mother, a sister-in-law. I had cancer myself. Imagine the trauma associated with that, and that's what we live with every day. Cordova and the other Trinity downwinders were initially hopeful when they heard about the film Oppenheimer. Cordova said the group tried to get in contact with the filmmakers while they were shooting in New Mexico, but was told that there wasn't interest in meeting with them. quote, all we wanted was a panel at the end of the movie to acknowledge the sacrifice and suffering of the people of New Mexico as part of the Manhattan Project. I mean, that's just disgusting. That is disgusting that they admit to this, because if you are making a biopic and you are so concerned with historical fact, how can you admit to this, that people got cancer and died from this fucking thing that you're making a movie about? Now we get to the other part, the actual bombings. Whoever says that it was necessary to drop nuclear bombs on Japan because to end World War II is either a dunce or a liar. There is no historical proof for this whatsoever. This is a hypothesis. Like, I want to believe that it helped shorten the war. Why don't we look at what the actual admirals in the Pacific in charge of fighting the war against the Japanese, what they have to say? Because guess what? They have firsthand knowledge of the war, and they understand it better than you and me. They're the admirals, the U.S. admirals in that theater of war. What do they have to say? In their post-war memoirs, several top American leaders, including 3 of the 4 chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time, criticized the atomic bombings as unnecessary. These included Admiral Ernest King, who argued that the naval blockade would have eventually brought Japan to surrender without either bombing or an invasion. General Henry Arnold, who argued that conventional bombing would force Japan to give in, and both Dwight Eisenhower and Douglas MacArthur. Admiral William Leahy, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was particularly appalled at the radiation effects of atomic bombs and argued that they were both unnecessary and immoral and would, like other weapons, be used by future enemies in a reciprocal way. Leahy wrote that employment of the atomic bomb in war will take us back in cruelty toward non-combatants to the days of Genghis Khan. In being the first to use it, we had adopted an ethical standard common to the barbarians of the Dark Ages. I mean, Jesus Christ, if you needed any more proof that bombing Japan was not only ineffective but wrong, this is it. I'm sorry. These are, as I said, not just the admirals. These are the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the heads of the United States Army, who are saying, like, imagine how bad it has to be for these guys to all say this. The people, those who think, they don't argue, and they don't think either, but they, who say that it was necessary to bomb Japan with nuclear weapons. These are, armchair morons, armchair generals. They have no clue what they're talking about. No clue whatsoever. The whole point of the nuclear bomb was to send a message to the Soviets. Anyone, any political analyst, journalist, or historian worth their salt knows this. This is not only obvious, but it's a historical fact, because the people who were running the army say this too. Okay? It was unnecessary to bomb Japan, and this was to send a message to the Soviets. That's it. It was a demonstration, a show of force. Do you understand? So this is another problem that they do not tell you in the film. And once again, it's even more concerning, all the more concerning that this is a biopic, which is, biopic is supposed to be a bit more accurate in terms of historical context and fact. Yes? Because it's not about drama and special effects and so on. It's about getting, it's about dramatizing and reenacting real events and telling the truth. And they don't tell the truth in this film. I'm sorry. And on top of that, it's a bad film. You are wasting your time. I got free tickets to see Mission Impossible, which I don't even like. And I really enjoyed that way, way more than this. And Mission Impossible is like completely unrealistic. So don't waste your money. But if you are interested in wasting 3 hours of your time, go see it. Again, I very much appreciate the director and Mr. Murphy over here, but this was not a good film. And there's like one part, again, I'm not spoiling, but he has regrets, right? And this is like, it takes up, 2 minutes of the film? 2 minutes where he has regrets about, killing all these people. As does the part where they're they're discussing, like, is this even necessary against the Japanese? That does not even take up 2 minutes. That's 30 seconds, not even. That's it. That is it. Nothing else. This is the real Oppenheimer. I'll play you this clip here. Is a famous quote.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." We knew the world.
Yeah, you should have thought of that before you blew up like 200,000 people and started an arms race with the Soviets. I mean, I have no doubt somebody else would have built that, but that's not an argument. I mean, you should have gone and lamented maybe beforehand. I don't know. This is always something that you should remember. And I'm going to repeat this as many times as it takes. The admirals who were fighting the war, an admiral is the top of the Navy. It's like a general, but in the Navy. Okay. And so in the Pacific theater, meaning where the Australians, British, Anzac and the Americans are fighting the Japanese, this is their, the admirals there. This is their theater of war. They're in charge of fighting this campaign. Keep in mind, Victory Europe Day was 8th of May, 1945. So by the time the Japanese surrendered, so Hiroshima is August 6th and Nagasaki is August 9th. And then they finally surrendered. This is several months after the fact. Okay, so while the war in Europe was over, it was not in the Pacific. It raged on. And it's not me telling you this. I wasn't there, but I'm a journalist and I have to know history to do my job. So I'm providing you with the evidence with people who have direct knowledge of fighting the Pacific campaign against the Japanese. The Joint Chiefs of Staff and the admirals who are telling you there was no need to do this. This was not only unnecessary, but immoral. I rest my case. There is nothing more to say. Anything else beyond this is conjecture and hypothesis and wishful thinking. How can you sit there and claim to know better than these people? You cannot. You cannot. And the problem is that this started an arms race with the Soviets, right? Jesus, how could it not? If you send me a message with a nuclear bomb, I'm going to make 50 million fucking nuclear bombs and I'm going to make them better than you. And guess what? We're in 2023 and the Russians still have their Soviet era weapons and better nuclear missiles than the Americans and faster ones, right? They have the Iskander line of missiles, ballistic missiles, and, hypersonic, which the Americans do not even have yet. This is not good. And the treaties, the START treaties, which were their entire purpose was to reduce the number of nuclear warheads, to calm the world down a bit, both the Russians and the Americans. Let's destroy these nuclear warheads. Let's limit them. Down the toilet, very unfortunate. These things were supposed to, they were supposed to be renewed and extended. But there are some people in Washington who are not interested. And now we are at a point in time where nuclear war is very relevant. It's actually more relevant than any time during the Cold War, which is astonishing because, as much as I think about it, I cannot fully grasp it because you would think after Cuban Missile Crisis, it goes down. Right, in general, and the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact, that the threat of nuclear war is going down, is decreasing. And now it's even higher. Try and wrap your brain around that. It's very concerning. It's very concerning. What can I say? And Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I mean, if you think those are bad, and they're very bad, in scale, in terms of proportion, the ones that the United States and, well, now it's a host of countries, including Israel, well, That's a colony, but anyway, these bombs are way worse. And all you hear is about is, Iran is building a bomb. No, it's not. It's not. Iran is, if you wanted to look at a list of countries that are the least likely to be building a bomb, Iran is at the top of the list because they have inspectors that have swept through the whole country. Any seismologist on Earth could see if they were testing something. It's just not. It's not the case. And if you're concerned with the proliferation of nuclear weapons, you would sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and implement it and ratify it. The Israelis refuse to sign it, so they have a secret nuclear weapons arsenal. But they want you to believe that actually it's Iran who is, unstable and destabilizing the region. It's quite the opposite, actually. If they wanted to get a nuclear bomb, they would have done so decades ago. Right, and if you're concerned about proliferation, you should go dismantle the Israelis' arsenal because, given their behavior, they are destabilizing the region. And now with Ukraine, this has become the number one threat. Alongside that, I suppose, because you have, as we were talking about, this escalation in Syria between the Americans and Russians, but in Ukraine directly, this confrontation between NATO and Russia. Russia moved nuclear weapons into Belarus. Things are heating up. It's not good. Not good. So if you do watch this motion picture, take it with 50 pounds of salt, not just a pinch. And do keep in mind that they did steal people's homes. They killed their livestock. They kicked them out of their homes. They gave them cancer. And that's how they were able to build a secret base. That the bombs were immoral and unnecessary. This goes without saying, but in case it wasn't obvious, when they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there were no military targets. They killed civilians. Also, if you look at the bombings of Dresden and Tokyo, I mean, you can easily cause that kind of devastation with conventional bombs. The firestorm, the giant fireball that sweep through Dresden in Germany, and as I said, the bombings in Tokyo. That was in one single night, right? They killed during that operation 100,000 people. So you can, if you want to compel the Japanese to surrender, you could have done that with a wide array of means. The bomb was a demonstration to the Soviets. That's all it was. It was a demonstration of awesome power, of great power, of truly apocalyptic in the true sense of the term, apocalyptic force. And anyone who says otherwise is an utter clown. This was a show of force to the Soviets. Nothing else. It has nothing to do with getting the Japanese to surrender. The Japanese wanted to surrender and were on the verge of collapse.